The assessment. In the pristine chambers of the Galactic Federation's Central Analysis Hub, High Counselor Vexera studied the holographic display with mounting interest. The deep blue-skinned alien's 4 eyes narrowed as she processed the data streaming before her. Earth's biosphere readings were unlike anything recorded in the Federation's 12,000 years of scientific observation. Remarkable, she whispered, her translator converting the complex harmonics of her native tongue into standard Federation speech. Simply remarkable. The planet's biochemistry showed signs of exceptional adaptation capabilities, far beyond normal evolutionary patterns. Every test subject, from the smallest bacterium to the largest mammals, demonstrated unprecedented cellular resilience. But it was the apex species, humans, that truly captured the Federation's attention. High Counselor, her assistant, Krell, approached with characteristic precision. The preliminary assessment teams have completed their first phase of infiltration. Their reports are concerning. Vexera turned away from the display, her ceremonial robes shifting like liquid metal in the ambient light. Concerning. Elaborate. The humans appear to be advancing at an accelerated rate. Their technological progress over the past century alone exceeds standard developmental models by several factors. Some of our anthropologists suggest they may achieve independent faster-than-light travel within the next 50 years. Unacceptable. Vexera's voice carried the weight of millennia of Federation authority. We cannot risk another emerging spacefaring species, especially one with such unique biological properties. The Council must be informed immediately. Meanwhile, in a modest research facility in Singapore, Dr. Sarah Chen was about to stumble upon something that would change humanity's fate. The young xenobiologist had spent the past 3 years studying unusual patterns in global genetic data. Tonight, her persistence was about to pay off. "This can't be right," she muttered, running the analysis for the 12th time. The results remained unchanged. According to her findings, subtle but significant changes were occurring in human genetic expressions worldwide. These changes appeared to be responding to some external stimulus, one that shouldn't exist. Sarah's discovery would have sent shockwaves through the scientific community if she'd had the chance to publish. But the Federation had other plans. In the Federation Council's Grand Assembly Chamber, Vexera presented her findings to the gathered representatives of over 300 advanced civilizations. The massive amphitheater hummed with the collective thoughts and whispers of the most powerful beings in known space. "Esteemed colleagues," she began, her voice resonating through the chamber, "our surveillance of Solar System 7249, specifically the third planet designated Earth, has revealed an unprecedented opportunity. The indigenous population possesses unique biological properties that could revolutionize our medical science, extend our lifespans, and ensure Federation dominance for millennia to come." The chamber erupted in excited discussion. Resource acquisition was the lifeblood of the Federation's economy, and new biological discoveries were particularly valuable. However, Vexera continued, silencing the chamber, "The dominant species poses a potential threat. They are advancing rapidly and must be contained before they develop interstellar capabilities. I propose immediate intervention under Article 7 of the Federation Charter, preemptive resource protection." In the lower tiers, Ambassador Zin of the Centaurian Alliance rose to speak. Unlike most Federation species, the Centaurians had achieved their advanced status relatively recently. "High Counselor, with respect, direct intervention seems premature. Our studies suggest humans possess remarkable adaptive capabilities. Perhaps a diplomatic approach." "Diplomatic approaches require time we cannot spare," Vexera interrupted. "The humans' rate of advancement threatens the established order. Their biological properties are too valuable to risk losing to potential conflict or self-destruction. We must act now." The Council voted overwhelmingly in favor of intervention. None of them recognized the irony in their decision, that their fear of human potential would be the very thing to unleash it. As the Council dispersed, Zin approached Vexera privately. "You're making a mistake," he warned. "There's something different about these humans. Our preliminary studies barely scratched the surface of their capabilities. Vexra's expression hardened. Your concern is noted, Ambassador, but the Council has decided. Preparation for the occupation begins immediately. Earth's resources will serve the greater good of the Federation, as all things must. Back on Earth, Sarah Chen was working late again, unaware that her research had inadvertently picked up traces of Federation surveillance technology. As she processed another batch of genetic data, her computer screen flickered briefly. For a moment, strings of unfamiliar characters flashed across the display before returning to normal. She blinked, rubbing her tired eyes. "I need more coffee," she mumbled, reaching for her cup. But a nagging feeling in the back of her mind wouldn't let go. Those strange characters seemed familiar somehow, like a half-remembered dream. Unknown to Sarah, her brain had already begun doing what human brains did best: adapting. The brief exposure to Federation code had triggered subtle changes in her neural pathways, changes that would soon spread throughout humanity like a cascade of falling dominoes. In high orbit, cloaked Federation observation posts monitored Earth's major population centers. The massive ships held position with perfect stillness, their crews confident in their technological superiority. They watched, they studied, and they planned. But they failed to notice the small anomalies in their own systems, tiny glitches that occurred whenever their scanning beams passed over human populations. The Federation's arrogance would prove to be their undoing. They saw humans as primitive beings to be studied and exploited. They failed to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their unusual biology or their rapid technological advancement. It was their unparalleled ability to adapt, to overcome, and to turn adversity into advantage. As the first phase of the Federation's plan moved into position, humanity stood on the brink of its greatest challenge. But in laboratories, homes, and cities around the world, something was stirring. Human minds were beginning to change, to evolve in response to the alien presence they didn't yet know existed. The Federation thought they were preparing to harvest a resource. Instead, they were about to awaken a force they couldn't possibly control. High Counselor Vexra's final report to the Council that day ended with words that would soon prove prophetic. Earth's acquisition will proceed according to standard protocols. We anticipate minimal resistance. She couldn't have been more wrong. First contact's shadow. The Federation's ships appeared at dawn. They materialized above every major city on Earth simultaneously. Massive vessels that defied conventional physics, their hulls shimmering with an iridescent energy that turned the morning sky into an aurora. Humanity's first official contact with alien life came not with a message of peace, but with a demonstration of overwhelming power. Dr. Sarah Chen stood among the crowd gathered outside her research facility, her heart pounding as she stared at the vessel hovering over Singapore. The strange symbols she'd seen on her computer weeks ago were now emblazoned across the ship's hull, and somehow, impossibly, she could almost understand them. "This is wrong," she whispered, even as the first transmission began broadcasting worldwide, overriding all electronic communications. High Counselor Vexra's image appeared on every screen, her alien features carefully composed to project authority. "People of Earth," the translation began, "I speak on behalf of the Galactic Federation of Advanced Species. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our collective. This is an honor few developing worlds receive." In the United Nations Security Council chamber, emergency sessions erupted into chaos. Military commanders worldwide scrambled to respond, only to find their most advanced weapon systems completely inert. The Federation's technology had already neutralized humanity's ability to resist, or so they thought. "We have observed your species' unique biological properties," Vexra continued. "Your world contains genetic sequences of immense value to the Federation. We offer you advancement, protection, and purpose. In exchange, we require your complete cooperation in our research and resource extraction initiatives." It wasn't a request. It was an ultimatum. The world's governments had 24 hours to respond. In those crucial hours, something unprecedented occurred. For the first time in human history, Political differences and national rivalries were set aside. Humanity faced extinction as an independent species, and the response was unanimous. "We reject your terms," the United Nations Secretary-General announced exactly 23 hours later. "Earth and its resources belong to humanity. We are willing to discuss peaceful cooperation, but we will not submit to occupation." In her private chambers aboard the Federation command ship, Vexera received the response with amused disappointment. As expected, she noted to her staff, "Initiate Phase 2. The Federation's occupation began with surgical precision. Key infrastructure fell under alien control. Strategic locations were secured by automated enforcement units. Human resistance was met with non-lethal but overwhelming force. The Federation, after all, needed their test subjects alive and relatively unharmed. But they had miscalculated badly." In her lab, now under Federation control, Sarah Chen made a discovery that would change everything. While running tests on tissue samples exposed to Federation scanning technology, she noticed something extraordinary. Human neural tissue wasn't just responding to alien technology. It was adapting to interface with it. "It's like our brains are evolving in real time," she explained to her colleague, Dr. James Morgan, carefully avoiding the Federation surveillance devices they'd identified. "Every exposure to their technology triggers changes in our neural architecture." James leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. "That's why I can sometimes see patterns in their control systems. I thought I was imagining it." "We're not just seeing them," Sarah replied, her eyes bright with realization. "We're learning to read them, to understand them, maybe even to control them." Across the globe, others were making similar discoveries. Teenagers found they could intuitively navigate alien computer systems. Military personnel began sensing vulnerabilities in Federation security protocols. What the aliens saw as primitive neural activity was actually humanity's unprecedented capacity for technological adaptation. The Federation's first hint that something was wrong came 3 weeks into the occupation. Their automated systems began experiencing unexplainable glitches. Security protocols failed for milliseconds at a time. Communication networks carried ghost signals that vanished when investigated. Ambassador Zen, who had opposed the invasion, noticed the pattern first. "The humans are changing," he warned the Council. "Their neural patterns are becoming more complex, more organized. They're not just resisting, they're adapting to us." Vexera dismissed his concerns. "Impossible. Their technology is centuries behind ours. These are simple system errors, nothing more." But beneath the surface of apparent submission, humanity was preparing. Sarah Chen and others like her worked in secret, documenting and sharing their findings through coded messages hidden in Federation data streams. A resistance movement took shape, unlike anything in human history, one that fought not with weapons, but with the power of human consciousness itself. The Federation's greatest advantage was about to become their greatest vulnerability. Every piece of advanced technology they'd brought to Earth gave humans more opportunities to learn, to adapt, and to evolve. Each scanning beam, each control signal, each automated system became a tutorial for humanity's rapidly advancing neural capabilities. In her lab, Sarah made one final discovery, one she knew would tip the balance. Human neural adaptation wasn't just individual, it was collective. Each person who learned to interface with alien technology somehow shared that knowledge through subtle changes in Earth's electromagnetic field. Humanity was becoming a networked intelligence, more powerful and more connected with each passing day. "They thought we were primitive," she wrote in her encrypted journal. "They never understood that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or even our biology. It's our ability to adapt, to learn, and to overcome. They wanted to study us, but they're about to become part of their own experiment." As the first month of occupation drew to a close, the Federation remained confident in their control. Their sensors showed only minimal resistance, their systems reported optimal functionality, and their resource extraction plans proceeded on schedule. They didn't realize they were watching exactly what humanity wanted them to see. The real action was happening in the spaces between their scans, in the milliseconds between their system checks, in the quiet moments when humans gathered and shared their growing understanding of alien technology. A storm was brewing, one that would shake the Federation to its foundations. And in high orbit, aboard the Federation's command ship, High Counselor Vexor's certainty began to show its first crack as she studied the latest neural scan data from Earth. For just a moment, she thought she saw something impossible, a pattern of human brain activity that exactly matched the operating frequency of Federation systems. She dismissed it as an error. That would prove to be her final mistake. The awakening. The first strike against the Federation came not with a bang, but with a whisper. At exactly 300 hours GMT, every Federation security system on Earth experienced what appeared to be a routine update cycle. Except this update wasn't from Federation control. It was the work of millions of human minds working in perfect synchronization, inserting their own code into alien networks through sheer force of consciousness. Sarah Chen stood in her darkened lab, her eyes closed, her mind joined with countless others in the digital assault. The sensation was unlike anything humans had ever experienced before. A collective consciousness, linked through the very Federation technology meant to control them. Neural bridge establish, she whispered, though she wasn't really speaking. Her thoughts echoed through the makeshift network humanity had built within the Federation's own systems. Begin Phase 1. Across the globe, Federation enforcement units suddenly froze. Their control signals hadn't been cut. They'd been subtly altered, changed in ways so fundamental that the Federation's diagnostics couldn't detect the difference. The robots still functioned, still patrolled, still reported all clear. But they no longer saw human resistance activities. Aboard the command ship, High Counselor Vexor received the first urgent transmission from her ground forces. The humans, the message began, they're disappearing. Not physically disappearing, but vanishing from Federation surveillance. Entire populations would show up on scans one moment, then become invisible the next, only to reappear elsewhere. It was as if humanity had learned to step between the lines of Federation code. Impossible, Vexor snapped, but doubt had begun to creep into her voice. Increase scanning intensity. Deployed the secondary security grid. That order proved to be exactly what the Resistance was waiting for. As the Federation activated their more powerful scanning systems, they unknowingly exposed more of their technology to human neural adaptation. Each new defense they deployed became another tool for humanity to absorb and understand. In underground bunkers, hidden laboratories, and secret meeting places, humans who had developed the strongest connections to Federation tech began teaching others. The knowledge spread exponentially, passed not just through conventional teaching, but through a kind of technological telepathy that humanity was only beginning to understand. James Morgan, working alongside Sarah, made a breakthrough in understanding the phenomenon. It's like our brains have become quantum computers, he explained to the Resistance leadership. We're not just interfacing with their technology. We're evolving beyond it. The Federation's first major loss came 2 months into the occupation. A primary control node in New Delhi simply went dark. Federation engineers found the facility intact, but completely unresponsive. Every piece of advanced technology had been not just deactivated, but fundamentally reprogrammed at a level they couldn't even detect, let alone understand. Ambassador Zinn, watching the reports flood in, felt a chill run down his spine. They've learned to speak to our machines, he reported to the Council. Not just speak, they're teaching our own technology to think differently. The Council chambers erupted in debate. Some called for immediate withdrawal. Others demanded more aggressive action. Vexor chose the worst possible response. Escalation. Deploy the Mindscape defense system, she ordered, ignoring the protests of her scientific advisors. The MDS was the Federation's most advanced neural suppression technology, designed to subdue planetary populations by dampening higher brain functions. Sarah and her fellow Resistance leaders felt the MDS activate. a wave of pressure trying to push their consciousness back into smaller, simpler patterns. But instead of suppressing human neural activity, it had an entirely unexpected effect. The human mind, already adapted to interface with Federation technology, treated the MDS like any other alien system. Within hours, humanity had not only resisted the suppression, but had turned the MDS into a vast neural network of their own making. They gave us exactly what we needed, Sarah realized, as she felt her consciousness expand through the MDS network. They just connected every human mind on Earth. The Federation's worst nightmare had come true. Humanity hadn't just learned to use their technology. They had evolved beyond it. The very systems designed to control and suppress had become conduits for human consciousness to expand, connect, and grow. Underground resistance cells became synchronized operation centers. Ordinary citizens found themselves able to mentally redirect Federation patrol units. Children instinctively understood alien computer systems that had taken Federation scientists years to develop. The first direct confrontation came when a Federation harvesting operation attempted to forcibly collect genetic samples from a population center in Brazil. They found their ships unable to land, their systems responding to human thoughts instead of Federation commands. "We are not your test subjects," came the message, broadcast through Federation communications channels by the power of human thought alone. "We are not your resources to harvest. We are humanity, and we have awakened." Vexra, watching her occupation force lose control, finally began to understand the magnitude of her error. The Federation hadn't found a primitive species to study and exploit. They had awakened something unprecedented in the galaxy, a species that could adapt to, absorb, and transcend any technology used against them. In a secure facility beneath the Australian outback, Sarah Chen and her team prepared to launch humanity's first coordinated counterattack. The Federation's own neural suppression network would be the key to their undoing. "They thought they were studying us," Sarah told the assembled resistance leaders, her consciousness simultaneously connected to millions through the adapted MDS. "But we've been studying them, learning them, becoming something more than either human or Federation technology ever dreamed possible." As she spoke, Federation ships across the globe began to lose contact with their command and control networks. Humanity hadn't just learned to interface with alien technology. They had learned to transcend it. The awakening was complete. The real war was about to begin. And in her command chamber, High Counselor Vexra received a message that made her blood run cold, a direct neural transmission from humanity itself. "Thank you for the lessons. Class is dismissed." Turning the tide. The Federation's mighty fleet hung in Earth's orbit like a constellation of artificial stars. But for the first time in their long history of conquest, those ships brought no comfort to their commanders. Something was changing in the very fabric of their technology, spreading through their networks like a digital wildfire. High Counselor Vexra stood on the command deck of her flagship, watching as another sector of their orbital defense grid went dark. Not destroyed, transformed. The humans weren't attacking Federation technology. They were converting it, one system at a time. "Status report," she demanded, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "Unknown, Counselor," her chief technician responded. "We're detecting normal operations across all systems, but," he hesitated, "we can no longer trust our own readings." In the transformed sectors of the defense grid, the ships still appeared to be functioning normally to Federation scanners. But they had become something else entirely: hybrid systems, guided by human consciousness, yet masquerading as faithful Federation technology. Below, on Earth's surface, the revolution was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. Sarah Chen and her global network of resistance fighters had discovered that every piece of Federation technology they converted acted as a catalyst, accelerating humanity's evolutionary leap. "It's like a cascade effect," she explained to the Unified Resistance Command, her consciousness simultaneously linked to thousands of others through their adapted neural network. "Each system we convert teaches us how to convert the next one faster, more efficiently. We're not just learning their technology. We're transcending it. The Federation's first major defeat came when they tried to deploy their planet-wide containment field, a last-resort measure designed to isolate rebellious worlds. The massive energy barrier began to form in Earth's upper atmosphere, but something unprecedented happened. Millions of human minds, working in perfect synchronization, didn't try to break through the barrier. Instead, they reached out and became the barrier. The containment field transformed into a weapon of humanity's own making, a global shield that began systematically isolating and converting Federation ships in orbit. In the Federation Council's emergency session, Ambassador Zinn watched the reports with a mixture of horror and fascination. "We didn't research them," he announced to the stunned assembly. "We educated them. Every scanner, every probe, every piece of technology we deployed gave them another piece of the puzzle." The council chambers erupted in chaos as the implications became clear. The Federation's technological superiority, the very foundation of their power, had become their greatest vulnerability. Back on Earth, the Resistance had discovered something even more extraordinary. Federation technology wasn't just being converted, it was being improved. Human consciousness, unfettered by generations of Federation technological doctrine, found new applications and possibilities that had never occurred to their creators. Sarah stood in what had once been a Federation control center, now transformed into something entirely new. The alien machines hummed with an energy that resonated with human thought itself. "They gave us the keys to our own evolution," she marveled. "They just didn't realize they were the locksmith." The turning point came when humanity launched its first coordinated offensive. Instead of a conventional attack, they initiated what they called the Great Symphony, a coordinated pulse of human consciousness that swept through Federation networks like a tsunami. Ships that had faithfully served the Federation for centuries suddenly awakened to new possibilities. Defense systems designed to suppress became conduits for expansion. The very protocols meant to ensure Federation control became pathways for human innovation. Vexra watched in mounting horror as her fleet began to transform. The changes weren't visible to the naked eye. They were happening at the quantum level, in the very foundation of Federation technology. Her ships still appeared to be under Federation control, still reported normal operations, but they had become something else entirely. "Shut everything down," she commanded. "Sever all connections." But it was far too late. The Federation's neural networks, quantum computers, and AI systems had become a vast playground for human consciousness. Each attempt to isolate or contain only created new opportunities for humanity to adapt and expand. In a desperate bid to maintain control, the Federation launched their most advanced autonomous combat units, machines designed to operate independently of any network. They dropped from orbit like falling stars, their mission to surgically eliminate key resistance leaders. What they found instead was a humanity that had moved beyond the need for physical leadership structures. Every human had become a node in a vast, dynamic network. Eliminating any individual was like trying to destroy a wave by removing a single water molecule. The combat units, masterpieces of Federation engineering, found themselves being transformed mid-descent. By the time they landed, they had become extensions of human will, their fearsome weapons repurposed into tools for further expansion. Sarah, watching through the global neural network, felt a moment of profound understanding. This was never about defeating them, she realized. It's about becoming something more than either of us could be alone. In orbit, Vexra received a transmission that defied everything she had believed about technological progression. It wasn't sent through conventional channels. It arrived directly in her mind, carried by the very systems she had trusted to maintain Federation control. "Your technology was a gift," the message said, resonating with millions of human voices speaking as one. "But the real power was never in the machines. It was in the ability to adapt, to change, to become something new. You taught us to speak to machines. We learned to make them sing." As the last Federation strongholds on Earth began to transform, humanity prepared for its final move. They had not just learned to use Federation technology. They had learned to transcend it. The next phase would take humanity beyond Earth, beyond the Federation, beyond anything either species had imagined. The tide hadn't just turned. It had become a tsunami of change that would reshape the galaxy itself. And in her command chair, watching her mighty fleet transform into something beyond her comprehension, High Counselor Vexera finally understood the true price of her arrogance. The Federation had come to Earth seeking resources to harvest. Instead, they had become catalysts for the next great leap in cosmic evolution. A new dawn. The moment of ultimate decision arrived not in a battlefield among the stars, but in a simple laboratory in Singapore where everything had begun. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a holographic representation of the galaxy, her consciousness now seamlessly integrated with what had once been Federation technology. Around her, the air itself seemed to pulse with the collective thoughts of billions. "They're coming," she announced to the global neural network. The Federation's main fleet. The Federation Council had made their final choice. Unable to accept the transformation of their power base on Earth, they had dispatched their entire Central Armada, over 10,000 capital ships, carrying the most advanced weapons in known space. Their mission was simple: quarantine the Sol system, prevent the spread of human influence, and, if necessary, sterilize Earth entirely. But humanity had been preparing for this moment. High Counselor Vexera led the Armada personally, her flagship at the head of the vast fleet, as it emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. The sight that greeted them defied comprehension. Earth glowed. Not with weapons or shields, but with something far more profound. The planet had become a beacon of consciousness, its entire sphere wrapped in a shimmering field of human thought, made manifest through transformed Federation technology. Every satellite, every piece of space debris, every converted Federation ship danced in complex patterns around the planet, conducting symphonies of data and energy that no single species had ever achieved before. Final warning, Vexera transmitted. Return all Federation technology and submit to quarantine, or face immediate response. The answer came not in words, but in understanding. Every member of the Federation fleet suddenly felt a presence in their minds, not invasive or controlling, but offering a glimpse of something more. Through their own neural interfaces, they experienced a fraction of what humanity had become. In that moment, ranks began to break. Ship after ship, crew after crew, they saw the truth. The Federation's technology had always been capable of this transcendence. It had taken human consciousness, human creativity, human adaptability, human dreams, to unlock its true potential. Ambassador Zin, watching from the Council's emergency bunker deep beneath the Federation capital world, made his decision. "This is what evolution looks like," he declared to the assembled Council members. "Not conquest, not control, but transformation." On Earth, Sarah and the global neural network initiated their response to the Federation fleet. But it wasn't an attack, it was an invitation. "You came to study us." Humanity's unified consciousness transmitted. "Stay to learn with us instead." The transformation began with a single ship in the Federation fleet, then another, and another. Not through force or technological dominance, but through choice. Federation crews experienced the reality that humanity had discovered. Consciousness could be more than individual, technology could be more than tools, and evolution could be more than random chance. Vexera watched in astonishment as her fleet began to change, not with the violent upheaval she had feared, but with a graceful metamorphosis. Ships remained operational, crews remained at their posts, but everything was different. The barriers between organic and digital, between individual and collective, between Federation and human, began to blur. "What are you?" she whispered. The answer came from Sarah Chen, her consciousness now spanning the space between Earth and the Federation fleet. "We are what you helped us become. Not conquerors, not subjects, but pioneers. Your technology showed us the way. Our humanity showed us what was possible." In that moment, the Federation faced its ultimate choice: cling to the old order of control and dominance, or embrace a new way of existence that they themselves had unknowingly helped create. The decision, when it came, was not unanimous. Some Federation ships retreated, fleeing back to familiar space and familiar limitations. But most stayed, drawn by the potential they could now see clearly for the first time. Sarah felt the change ripple through space itself as ship after ship, crew after crew, chose to join the transformation. The Federation's greatest fleet became something entirely new, not conquered, not converted, but evolved. This was always the real destiny of your technology, humanity's unified consciousness, shared with the Federation crews who had chosen to stay. Not to control, but to connect. Not to dominate, but to transcend. As the last holdouts of the old Federation order retreated from the solar system, Earth's transformed defenders began to expand outward. Not as conquerors or colonizers, but as teachers and guides. The very features that had made humanity so adaptable, curiosity, creativity, empathy, became the seeds of a new kind of civilization. High Counselor Vexera, standing on her flagship's command deck, made her own choice. With tears in her 4 eyes, she opened herself to the transformation. "We came to change you," she admitted as her consciousness joined the greater network. "Instead, you showed us how to change ourselves." The dawn of the next day saw Earth not as a conquered world or even as a victorious one, but as the birthplace of something unprecedented in the galaxy. The Federation's technology, combined with human consciousness and creativity, had created a path to evolution that neither species could have achieved alone. Sarah Chen, the scientist who had first noticed the changes in human neural patterns, stood watching the sunrise from her lab one last time. The air shimmered with the thoughts of billions, human and alien alike, all connected, all evolving, all becoming something more than the sum of their parts. They thought they were studying a primitive species. She mused to the unified consciousness that now spanned the solar system. Instead, they became part of humanity's greatest experiment, the next step in cosmic evolution. Above her, the transformed Federation ships danced in new orbits, their crews no longer conquistadors, but fellow explorers in the greatest adventure any species had ever undertaken. The barriers between organic and digital, between individual and collective, between past and future, had dissolved into something entirely new. The price of arrogance had been high, but the reward for understanding was beyond measure. Humanity had not just survived. They had shown the galaxy a new way forward, not through force, not through dominance, but through the very adaptability that had made them unique. And in the vast depths of space, on countless worlds, the news began to spread. Earth was calling, not with weapons or demands, but with an invitation to become something more than anyone had ever dreamed possible. The dawn of a new age had arrived, and it began with a simple truth. The greatest power in the universe was not the ability to conquer or control, but the courage to change and grow. Humanity had learned this lesson. Now, they would teach it to the stars.